All right, good day to everybody. This is Josh from Vitality Maximized here, and I have with me the great Dante Berry from Prospering from Sickle Cell Anemia. Dante, how are you doing today?
Doing very well.
Sweet,
Glad to come in
sweet.
and
So today we're just going to go over, Dante's work in reversing sickle cell anemia in his son, Daniel, and to talk about what approaches he's done, how he discovered it, and going over like patterns that will be pretty important for people to sort of, take note of when it comes to certain genetic conditions. So let us just begin. Let us just start with, what is sickle cell anemia? Why is it traditionally classed as a genetic condition?
well, sickle cell anemia has always been traditionally classed as a genetic illness or a genetic mutation or disease. The earliest cases were in the 40s, and by the time I think 1986 came around, they began screening all newborns for sickle cell anemia. Okay, it's about 90% of it happens in the Black community, so um, that is a marker, and it's something that that I research to find out as to why that is the case. I actually wrote an article about a new way of thinking about sickle cell anemia, a new cause, or new way to think about how it became about. Um, so now, as far as it being genetic, the story goes like this: the illness or the disease malaria is can be fatal, and it can be a difficult thing to go through. Now, they
Hmm.
say that sickle cell anemia, what happens is the red blood cell, it begins to sickle. It turns into a shape like a sickle. And what that does is that causes pain as the as the blood cells go through the blood vessels, it causes pain. But there is a myriad of other issues that come along with that. When you have organ issues, you have lymphatic and spleen problems, and degeneration of the organs. You also have delayed development. So, but what they say is due to the sickling of the cell, it makes a person immune to malaria. Now, um, whenever I heard that years and years ago, it did not sit well with me, and I didn't believe it just simply because a couple of reasons. Number one is there's people that continuously are born with sickle cell anemia. And there's not an epidemic of malaria, especially here in America. There's not much. We never really hear about anybody having malaria. So
Okay.
why would there be an increased amount of people developing this illness or being born with this illness? And number two, when you have a genetic adaptation to keep you from catching or developing one disease, why would the body, with its intelligence in the DNA, why would it create a even worse disease that causes the degeneration of organs, that causes immense pain and shortened lifespan, just to keep you from catching something that really can be overcome with some malaria pills? So that is what allowed me to understand that it has to be something different. It has to be something more to just being genetic. Because as we know, the genetics, or we don't all know this, but this is something that I discovered um, reading about mineral balancing, is that the DNA and the genetics are very, very secure. It takes a whole lot to disrupt the information that's encoded in the genetics, in the DNA. What normally happens And what people call, or what scientists call, genetic disorders is when there's when the information in the DNA is being transcribed, or it's being copied, it's being replicated, and new proteins and enzymes are being made. You have a lot of interferences, and these interferences are caused by foreign agents in the body that are not supposed to be there, such as toxic heavy metals and chemicals and things of that nature, which weaken every aspect of the cell itself. So this is why I wrote an article talking about a different understanding on the causes of sickle cell anemia, as opposed to just genetic.
Mhm. I'll make sure to leave a link to that article in the show notes. I'll make sure to do that. Um, so, so let me ask this: when you had that podcast with Luke, Life Labs HTMA, you said something along the lines of, when you did how you discovered that your son had sickle cell anemia. Am I correct in saying that? And please correct me if I'm wrong. That um that you did maybe some genetic testing and then you found out that you had a recessive gene for sickle cell. Am I correct? Just humor me on that, please.
Yes, well, I have a trait called beta thalassemia, or I was born. I don't know if I still have it. I might not, but because I've been on a mineral balancing program for so long. But I was born with a trait called beta thalassemia, and what it does is it causes a similar effect in the blood cells. It causes a misshaping of the blood cells, and it makes the blood cells smaller and not carry as much oxygen. Now, his mother had the sickle cell trait. Okay, now when you have just a trait, you oftentimes will not see any symptoms until
Mm-hmm.
usually see his symptoms until they get older in age. When they get in their 30s and 40s and beyond, they start to see certain uh, things within them, and it could be things like high blood pressure. It could be a number arthritis. It could be a number of things that they don't even relate back to having a trait of beta thalassemia or having a trait of sickle cell. But when two
Mm-hmm.
people get together and they both have traits, then it's basically just a toss of a coin. The child could inherit none of the traits, or
Mm-hmm.
the child could inherit one trait, or the child can inherit two traits. So when
Thanks.
Daniel inherited both traits, sickle cell and beta thalassemia, that is just a different form of sickle cell. It's called beta thalassemia, sickle cell anemia. So there's
Mm-hmm.
there's different types of sickle cell. They all have the same symptoms. SS sickle cell is the most extreme, and then
Mm-hmm.
they have ones that are less extreme, but they all carry the same type of symptoms, and the same things can happen. So I didn't know that was in my. I had that trait until I learned about Daniel having sickle cell, because they're screened ever since 1986. All children are screened for sickle cell because
I
it
see.
had become that prevalent um, over time.
Let me ask a question. Maybe I don't know if you might have the answer to this, but have you ever wondered why you may have a beta thalassemia sickle cell gene by chance? Have you ever wondered why that might have occurred? Um, if you don't know, it's okay. It's just maybe maybe if we could maybe sensitize our audience so that we
Yeah,
might have
man.
a
Well,
bit of
everything you have multiple areas of life. You've got the spiritual area of life. You have your lifestyle area. Okay, you
Mhm,
have physical, your biochemistry. Um, all of those things come together. You have your emotional, your mental uh, area of life. All of those things come together to create who we are. So there is a multitude of reasons why people have disorders. Um, one of the things that I focus on the most is Well, I'll say two things. Number one, the depletion of the mineralization of the soil in this country
Mm-hmm.
and probably worldwide, but especially in America, there is a extremely, comparatively to 100 years ago, the mineral content of our soil is very, very low.
Mm-hmm.
And that is due to a myriad of reasons. I have theories upon that,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a fact. And it's
Yes.
not a theory that is the case. It is a fact that the mineral level of the soil is extremely low compared to 100 years ago and going back even further.
Mm-hmm.
So, in addition to that, you have it, because of that fact, um, these companies they have to use these superphosphate fertilizers and they have to use these different type of pesticides because the mineral level is so low. They still have to yield a crop. So when they're
Mm-hmm.
using these superphosphate fertilizers, it 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 causes even more damage to the food. And what it does is it creates minerals with an oxide form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so say for
Mm-hmm.
example you have potassium, and potassium is wonderful in the body, right? You need it for
Yes.
your thoughts, you need it for energy production to produce ATP and all of that in your cells, sodium,
Mm-hmm.
potassium. But when there's superphosphate fertilizers and there's a low amount of minerals, the potassium is generated or synthesized in a form that's called an oxide form. And an oxide form within the body causes oxidation or oxide damage. So it causes inflammation. It can cause all these problems, and it's not utilized properly the way that it's supposed to. So when you ingest that, then it causes all kinds of malfunctions, and your body's going to do the best that it can because your body's going to adjust. It's going to use what it can to produce the proteins, to produce the enzymes that it wants and that it needs to
Mm-hmm.
be as functional as humanly possible. But it's like it's like working with really cheap parts. You're trying to build something that's very, very necessary. A really high powered engine you're trying to build for a plane, and
Mm-hmm.
you're using all used parts and cheap parts and whatnot. It may get the plane off the ground possibly, but nobody feels comfortable being in that plane because the thought of it going down any moment because the parts are bad. That's what we're dealing with when we talk about the soil.
Yeah.
So
Um. Mhm.
so as that occurs, there's more room for there to be malfunctions in the transcription and the replication of the DNA, which gives us the codes to produce everything that we need to make our livers run properly, our kidneys to produce the correct hormones for our endocrine system and all that. So, to me, that's the one of the main reasons why people have um, traits or illnesses or genetic things that they're born with, and why they're passed on generation after generation.
I see. Uh-huh. That's a very concise answer, and maybe at another time I will circle back to the superphosphate fertilizers and the toxic potassium and everything in between. Now, I know you were skeptical about conventional medicine approaches, right? And did you guys ever try it in any respects, or did you just say like, yeah, I can't even trust this at all?
Well, it's interesting. One time I took him to the emergency room because he had a fever, and for sickle cell anemia, when people have a fever, it can indicate an infection, and they have that a lot. And I took him. He was probably it was actually before I learned about mineral balancing. He was maybe 1 years old,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think one of the doctors or the nurses, I was talking to her because I had done a little bit of research on different nutritional things that can be done to help. And I asked her about it. What did she think that I can give him to help his blood? And she really didn't say anything. And then I said, there's some type of nutrient that I read about that I know they said would help. It starts with a F. It's like folic, or she was like, "Oh, folate." I was like, "Yeah, folate." I was wondering why come she didn't just tell me that? Like I had to pry that out of her. I was like, "Wow, they really just they are they withholding information from me, or I mean, what's the issue?" And they took so much. They tested his blood, and they took so many. He was 1 years old, so he's probably like this big, right? And I don't even think he was one. But they took like four vials of blood, like vials like this, and I'm like, wow, they don't even scale the amount of blood that they take for how big the person is. They took the same amount of blood they would take from a grown adult. They took it from a baby. Like that can't be. How's that going to make him feel? He's already sick. They're taking all that blood out of him.
Yeah.
They basically did nothing. They did nothing. They're like, well, okay, well these
Yes.
levels are okay, and these levels are okay, and all right, just give them this or give them that, and
Uh,
but there's no answers.
yeah. So very common, very common experience most people have when they approach the conventional medicine route. Leaves us, I bet it leaves a sour taste in your mouth sometimes. Maybe if you were thinking back, and then before you jumped or you discovered Dr. Wilson's website and the whole world of mineral balance and hair analysis, did you try any holistic options, or did you just discover Dr. Wilson first time with the hand of God?
Well, it's funny. Weston A. Price, that's the website that I was first drawn to, and it talked about the importance of animal protein. Um, what I was doing for him at the time was I was making his own baby formula. I found this really I don't remember the lady's name, but I found this really good recipe. It used whey protein, it was coconut oil, it was um, omega 3 fatty acid oils. It was a whole concoction that you build together, and you put in the milk and everything, and so I think I got it from Weston A. Price website, and Weston A. Price was a dentist, I think, in the 1930s or something like that. And he went around the world, and he was notating the different villages who ate animal protein and how they developed, as opposed to those who did not. And so his diet, I was using that for a little bit, and they had an article on that website, and it talked about um, heavy metals. And he said, okay, and it was talking about how heavy metals can contribute to different problems in the body, and then it had a link to, I believe, Doctor Wilson's website. So from that Weston A. Price's website, that linked me to Dr. Wilson's website, and that's what I learned about hair mineral analysis and being able to record or see the recordings and the levels of these minerals in the body and the ratios of different minerals together and how they affect all of the systems in the body. So when I saw that, I mean, it just blew my mind. I was just reading that like a mad scientist. I was reading those articles all night after work. I just come back and read them and read them and read them, and then I decided, I'm gonna go ahead and get this done. And the rest is history.
Wow. It's like we're long lost brothers. That's how I discovered Dr. Wilson. Oh, that's why I really opened up to the science of mineral balance and hair analysis. It was all through Weston A. Price's website. So
Wow.
Sally, Hilda, everybody in the Weston A. Prize Foundation, thank you for, at least opening the wings up to find proper, um, healing in a more precise manner. So if they ever come to watch this, we thank you. I'll discuss my story maybe at another point in time. So now,
Yeah. That's a Weston A. Price, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
um,
He did a lot of great work, and his work was done in the early 1900s when um, everything was different. The environment was different. They still had good soil, right? So the vegetables and the things that they were eating had a high mineral content, and it's just not like that. It's just not like that today.
yep, I hear you. So let us just move on a little bit. Maybe we can go a little bit more into your son's journey um, since day one up till now. Um, I know this is going to be a huge chunk of today's video. So I'm just going to say this, walk us through his journey from, his very first hair test or hair analysis and some of the changes that I believe you're going to let me and the audience know, um, you know, as you progress along. So yeah,
Well, before I get into the numbers there, I want to say when you have people that are born with illnesses, um, childhood leukemia, sickle cell anemia, different things, 9 times out of 10, these children are sensitive individuals, meaning that they have a high connection to the spirit realm. They have a high connection to intuition. They have a high connection to being able to feel the thoughts and the feelings of other people. They have a lot of potential in this world. So they have a lot of potential to do great things, to make the world a better place, something that we want to do. And I believe that because of this, these these people, they suffer from different issues. Physical issues are can be the worst because it can keep you from really doing anything. When your mind and your body is preoccupied with being sick, it's hard to accomplish what you've been put on earth to accomplish. So I believe all of the people that are born with these congenital problems, they have a special mission in life, and I believe one of my missions in life is to help those people to get healthy and to get strong so they can fulfill theirs. Um, so God's will can be done, and the world can be a better place, and we can start excelling and developing and moving forward. Now, his first hair analysis is very interesting because at the time, Dr. Wilson told me that he had the highest level of potassium that he had ever seen. I think it was like 282, something like that. And we know potassium is very integral when it comes to the blood. Not only the blood, but the way the body produces energy. The thyroid, okay, and your thyroid is part of your endocrine system. So if your thyroid's not functioning right, your adrenal glands are not going to be functioning right. If you're not getting the proper generation of energy, it's the same way you have a generator that produces electricity, or power plant that produces energy. If there's components that are stifling the generation of the energy, then there's going to be a problem, and there could be some type of blow up. Okay, so it's the same way in the body. It's the same way in the cells. Having an extreme amount of toxic potassium is going to, at some point in time, it could cause heart problems, could cause blood problems, and whatnot. He also had a very, very low sodium potassium ratio, which, of course, in hair mineral analysis, we refer to that as the vitality ratio. It's the vitality is your inner strength. It can't be really be measured. Vitality can't be measured, but it can be felt. And when it's very, very low, then your body doesn't have the energy to heal. It does not have the energy to um, reproduce, proteins, synthesize proteins, and just get all the information and instructions throughout your body, and connect your mind to your belly and all these different things that we learn about. Um, his his toxic metal and oxide form of minerals, they were all off the charts. They were all high, or they're indicated as being high. When you're talking about lead, when you're talking about aluminum, when you're talking about toxic potassium, when you're talking about mercury, when you're talking about nickel, all of the toxic manganese, all these things are very high. So those when those things are high, it makes the basic functions of the cell very difficult. And all of the energy reserves in the body are used just to try to sustain itself and bring the person to homeostasis, which doesn't allow them the energy and the time and the focus to develop their gifts and their skills and talents that they've been put on earth to do. So he had very high toxic metals, and all of his mineral ratios were out of whack. So his thyroid ratio was out of whack. His adrenal ratio was reversed. His
Hmm.
vitality ratio was reversed. His calcium magnesium, that was off.
Hmm.
So after that, we put, I put him on the supplements, and slowly over time, these things start to improve. You start to see toxic metals being released from the cells. And when you interpret the lab results, I use analytical research labs. You interpret those lab results, you're able to look at them, through the science of interpreting it, and you can see where toxins are being removed from the body. So this is verifiable. It's not guesswork or anything like that. This is laboratory work where you can see the change over time. So, from when he started, he's been progressively, and that was maybe about 11 years ago that he's been on this.
Hmm. Just give me a quick moment. I will. I just need to just get something real quick, and we'll
Okay, I'll
come
talk a
back.
little bit.
And then so I'll just leave with the question, and then respond to it and give it more juice.
Okay.
So when I watched some of your videos, sort of like sharing your son's like case study, the case study with sickle cell anemia. What was really interesting, I think my audience, your audience, and whoever watches this in years come by will have to would love to ask, because when people think about anemia, they think of low energy. But in this case, Daniel had sickle cell anemia, but it was in fast oxidation. And we don't necessarily relate fast oxidation to really low energy, unless of course I know he has a low NAK ratio that also contributes to the overall energy production. So just please share with us how could someone have sickle cell anemia or anything related to anemia and be in fast oxidation.
Okay. Well, okay. So when you have a high level of
I have any
toxic metals,
five.
what happens is toxic metals
I'm in the middle of
will
it.
be used by the body in the place of the essential minerals that it needs. But what a toxic metal will do is it will like artificially stimulate the endocrine system. The toxic metals will artificially stimulate the adrenal glands. It will artificially stimulate the thyroid, the whole entire endocrine system, even the glands within the brain, toxic metals, they artificially stimulate that through a form of irritation because of the chemical componency of the metals. It's kind of like, for example, a person that's very low in energy. Let's say somebody's been up for 2 3 days in a row. They're so sleepy. They're just dragging their feet, and they might be at work. They may have had to do a shutdown, so they may have had to stay at work for 48 hours or whatever the case may be, and they're just dragging their feet. They don't have any energy left, right? Now, let's say that person's a firefighter or something like that. If there's a fire during that time, okay, all the alarms go off and they got to get their stuff together somehow, some way. They just get a bunch of energy. That's through their adrenaline rush. Okay, it's stimulated through some type of catastrophe happening. Now that person's got the energy to go out and fight the fire, and then after that they get off their shift, they're just gonna crash. They're probably gonna sleep the whole day. So that's the same thing that happens inside of the cell when a person has is in fast oxidation and they have all of these toxic metals. It's basically an artificial form of energy. It's these toxins causing an irritation or an agitation to the adrenal glands and to the endocrine system so that the body can produce hormones to sustain itself. And children in general have fast oxidation. Until they get to maybe about between 10 and 12 years old, they start to slow down. That's just the regular childhood energy. But that's even a reason why some people who are adults, if they're in fast oxidation and they have a lot of toxic metals, they can seem to have energy because the toxic metals and the oxide forms of minerals, they're not being used the way they're supposed to, but they're basically just pushing the person into having energy falsely. And a person's energy it's not being utilized or it's not being generated correctly when the person has some type of ailment. A person may have arthritis or something like that, or chronic pain, but they have a lot of energy. It's because that energy is being produced artificially through the irritation of toxic metals, chemicals, and oxide or carbonate forms of minerals, meaning that the minerals are not able to be utilized in the cells the way that they're supposed to. That instead of an oxide form of a mineral, instead of it being magnesium, instead of it being used to generate and to create enzymes, um, it's used to stimulate or irritate certain parts of the cell to generate enzymes, which causes a different set of issues. It'll cause the same effect, which would be energy generation or production, but along with that, it will cause ailments. So when those toxins and those oxide forms and minerals are replaced with good, healthy, proper forms of minerals, then the oxidation level begins to balance. The sodium potassium ratio begins to balance, and all of the different ratios in the cell begin to balance, and you have a true form of energy. You have a true form of energy that is balanced and equal without ailments or without chronic pain or issues in the physical.
See, so that is very bitey, very juicy. I know that you've mentioned how because obviously he's of a certain age where his oxidation rate will be probably a bit more fast, and then you also mentioned that the exposure or at least the mobilization of heavy metals can artificially, you know, increase the energy level, only that it is not of a long lasting or healthy type of energy in the long term. So viewers, just Obviously, if you have questions, whether you watch this now, whether you watch this later, I'll be able to respond. Dante will be able to respond in regards to, you know, have someone having anemia and then being in fast oxidation. So I will I have some more questions regarding some of his deeper patterns because
Hmm.
I know that things improved down the years and
Absolutely.
which was lovely. But one thing that really caught my mind that maybe because of maybe the heavy metals genotoxic effects on on the cell, right? Like for me to me when I was looking at like say the cadmium, especially the cadmium, because it's typically the hardest heavy metal for people to eliminate in most cases, right? Like like what were you able to do down the years that he was able like that elevated cadmium started going back to a fairly you know ideal range for someone to be holding cadmium in their hair tissue. So just share that because that cadmium was really interesting. How Daniel was able to eliminate completely that cadmium over time, and
Yeah.
did and maybe I'll also add this if um based on his heavy metal eliminations. I know that you mentioned something about you know he was having pain in the extremities and delayed development and everything. Were there any other like maybe symptoms because they may all contribute to the whole individual? So first the
Mhm.
cadmium, and then we can start talking to heavy metals at large and how it may have affected his personality and how he perceived things and everything in between.
Well, the beautiful thing about mineral balancing is when you are when you are correcting when you're taking the proper supplements, mineral supplements, and you're eating the proper diet. The diet consists of a lot of cooked vegetables. You want to try to eat as much cooked vegetables per day as possible, and you also want to eat animal protein. Um, with him, I he eats a good amount of lamb for his red meat, and then of course chicken, sardines, turkey, and stuff like that. Not a lot of carbs, but a lot of cooked vegetables for that mineral content, and of course the animal protein for the protein that's necessary for building protein in the cells. Um, but there's nothing specific that I did to alter the cadmium, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
beauty of the program. When you are when that oxidation rate starts to balance, and the amount of the way that your body produces energy becomes more efficient, the body starts to do what it needs to do. So we can't comprehend and understand fully exactly everything that's going on. But the development of this science, Dr. Paul Eck and all the different people that developed mineral balancing science throughout the decades, they came to the understanding and conclusion that when you balance and you hit these 4 or 5 different mineral ratios, all type of wonderful things start to happen, and the elimination of these toxic metals begin to happen. And we know cadmium, when a person develops a lot of the toxic metal called cadmium, it can affect the heart and affects the blood vessels. It makes them very more tough and more rigid, and they're not as malleable and pliable, whatever that word
Pl-
is.
Pliable. Got it.
Pliable, malleable, and pliable. Um, when the cadmium is removed and the proper minerals are replaced over time, those blood vessels are healthier, and which allows the blood to funnel itself through those vessels much easier. And also, of course, the heart is going to be healthier.
Mm-hmm.
So over time, just sticking to that regimen, getting the hair mineral analysis, and Based off of his results, that's how we know what supplements he needs to take.
Hmm.
Everybody's going to take some of the main supplements like calcium, magnesium, and omega threes, and usually going to take kelp unless there's a serious thyroid issue. Um, but there's a few that are going to be different from person to person based off of their hair results.
Yep.
With him
I.
just taking those supplements from Endomet Analytical Research Labs on a daily basis and eating the proper diet, making sure that he's getting enough sleep. Um, I do reflexology on him, with foot reflexology. It hits the meridians, the energy lines. Um, he's done a lot of infrared sauna therapy. Not too much because it can be a little too much for some people, but that along with a couple other things I said, color puncture, it helped to just his body began to remove cadmium in its own way. I did not do anything specific. I didn't give any type of chelation or
Hmm.
chelator to remove cadmium.
Hmm. I.
His body got strong enough to remove it itself.
Mhm. That is the wonderful thing about you know revitalizing the body in a more precise manner through the diet, through the supplements, and everything in between. So now, if I may ask, for your son Daniel, I know his symptoms improved over time. So is it possible to just share, you know, some of his other symptoms other than the syndrome of sickle cell anemia that he had, and like how that improved over time?
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah, man. We've done a lot, and when you have when you have ailments such as that, right? And you have heavy metals in your system, those things are, they affect. This is so interesting, man. They affect the electromagnetic, what people call your aura, okay?
Mhm,
Your electromagnetic field around your body, okay? It is a fact that it is real. Now, some people will call it an aura. Some people call it all these different things that are have a spiritual connotation to it, or maybe a new age connotation to it. But if you keep it just um, specifically scientific with things that can be measured with instruments, there is a field around the body. It's invisible to most of us. But when you have these heavy metals in the cells and in the body, that field is easily punctured and it's weakened, and there's holes in that field. Okay, so and you have okay, coming from a spiritual perspective, okay, you have spiritual influences that we cannot see, and they like to target children because children are very pure. They come into this world very pure, and they're usually not the field of their body, their aura or their electromagnetic field is not the strongest. So the in order for them to be safe in a certain way, they're covered by the energy of their parents. Now, when you have toxic metals in your blood and in your cells, such as nickel, right, cadmium, lead, uh, when you have oxide or toxic forms of iron, because iron is an essential mineral, but if it's in a toxic form, it causes problems. It weakens the energy field of the body. It those Some of those metals implant themselves in the brain. So he had a lot of nightmares. So he used to have a lot of night terrors and nightmares and bad dreams and stuff like that. Consistently, right? Not every night, but on a regular basis, to where um, it was disturbing. And he also had his emotions were not they were somewhat unstable. Um, if it was an adult, you would consider it to be like depression or something like that. I mean, children really don't get depressed, but they express their concerns that they have, or they express their negative emotions in other ways. They'll say, "Oh, nobody loves me," or "I want to run away," or whatever the case may be. Um, Now, over time, when we really, when I was able to really get him really regimented on the program, all the nightmares went away. Just they just stopped. Okay. Also, fears. We know that, okay, these minerals, your sodium and your potassium, um, they have a huge impact on your adrenal glands and your kidneys. Okay. Your kidneys are the area of the body that store fear. Okay. And if you look into Chinese medicine, or even acupuncture, any type of energy medicine, and they'll all tell you the same thing. There's books, and there's documentation on this that goes back hundreds of years. Um, your liver will store anger. Okay, so people that are alcoholics, they have anger problems because alcohol directly deteriorates the liver. And if your liver is deteriorated, you're going to have anger issues, or you'll have the propensity towards it. If your kidneys are not, if they're deteriorated or they're not healthy, then you could have unnecessary fears, or elevated fear, or anxiety. Okay. Um, and that all affects the electromagnetic field around the body. So when there's a weakness in the kidneys, okay, so now these outside forces and spiritual um, entities that we can't see, they can begin to manipulate the mind of a person and make them have unrealistic fears and be scared of everything. And then if that happens, then they're not able to take a step out and begin to try to accomplish what it is that they've been given to accomplish in the world. So through fear, through anger, through depression, all of these things you could see signs of in Daniel very young. But you could also see the goodness in him, the light, and all of the happiness and the sensitivity. You see the potential, but by seeing the potential, you you come to understand why certain people are attacked, because they have a lot of potential. So as these metals are removed every 6 months, we do another hair analysis, and over the years, these things just empty out. The fear goes away, the nightmares go away. The irrational fears or thought patterns, they stop. Okay, he becomes much more um, strong and independent within himself, and not as dependent on others. And these are all things that people would call personality traits. Oh, that person's just so sensitive, and they're just this and that and this and that. Well, yeah, that is possibly true, but if they're in their proper form, I guess you could say, if they're in their healthiest form, those characteristics will be maximized. The sensitivity won't be used to always cry about something, or always feel like a victim. That sensitivity will be used to feel other people's needs, wants, and pain, and be able to figure out a way to heal those things, or be able to figure out a way to solve problems, because they can be sensitive to certain problems in the world, and they can move to solving them. So the saying, a gift can be used to excel and to improve that person, their immediate surroundings in the world, or it can be hijacked by negative spiritual forces, and their whole purpose and mission in life can be stifled through illness and disease. And it's just amazing to see when something as simple as toxic metals like cadmium and lead and aluminum and nickel in and of itself is has been known to cause people to have suicidal thoughts. A person that's high in nickel can possibly have that, especially as adults, teenagers, up until adults.
Hmm.
And we have an epidemic of all of these antidepressant medications, and almost every medication that I see on television that has an ad. One of the side effects is suicidal thoughts, and the medication could be for something like weight loss. It's like, wow, a weight loss pill could cause you to have suicidal thoughts. That doesn't make any sense. So leads me to know what those medications do. I mean, they may cause weight loss or whatever the case may be, but knowing what we know about minerals, knowing what we know about the electromagnetic field of the body, um, we know that it affects those things. And it's to me, it's not worth it. In mineral balancing and hair mineral analysis and mineral balancing, it is more of a discipline. You have to have more discipline than just taking the pill 3 times a day or twice a day or whatever. It's a lifestyle of diet and detoxification procedures and taking supplements and whatnot. But it's so much worth it. It's so much worth it. It can change the trajectory of a person's entire life, which can change the trajectory of their whole lineage.
That is, yeah. So definitely the behavior changed over time as he was able to properly detoxify heavy metals, especially nickel, cadmium, etc. I want to ask this, and maybe some people don't like talking about their religion, or their spiritual leanings. But how I know that Daniel goes to church with you pretty much every week, unless there's something that comes up on a Sunday morning. But how do you think him going to church, particularly the church that you go to, has helped him spiritually or helped him in his in his own journey with sickle cell anemia?
Oh man, it's been that is the reason I even found this technology, paratissue mineral analysis. I've always prayed for wisdom. I know I got into wanting to understand natural healing in my early 20s, but I had no knowledge, just none. But I prayed and I asked God for that. And when you understand the concept of light, there's things that you can do that will bring light into your life. It will bring light into your heart, um, which is the main what people that are into like New Age science will call chakra, your heart chakra. But light is it's a real thing. It's not just what you go outside and see that's coming from the sun. Light is encoded with information. Light has healing properties. So just like the way we have these computers set up, when you see people on the side of the road and they're pulling fiber optic cable, the fiber optic cable is how these buildings are able to get on the internet and upload information, because fiber optic cables are basically just made of sand, and what is pushed through the sand and the glass is light, but that light's encoded with information. It's just what's in our phones, it's what's in our computers, it's how we interact with each other through light. So when you're going to church, or when he's going to church, he puts his mind and his heart in a space of faith and belief. belief that Christ said that he would be healed. So what that does is that brings the invisible light from the Creator into this person's aura field. It brings that into this person's heart. And that alone causes change. That alone causes a measure of healing. But what I want to do is I want people to understand that, okay, you have that measure of healing that comes from Christ, but he also gives us wisdom to affect other areas of life that's going to continue to bring that healing, because we don't live just as spirits. If we were just spirits, we would have no need for healing the body, because we wouldn't have a body. But since we have a body, God leads us to having the wisdom to do things physically on earth to continue to push people along that healing path. And that's what I believe everybody should, especially people of faith, that they should incorporate and understand that every area of life has to be attended to with equal fervency. Spiritual, the physical, the mental, and emotional, they all have to be addressed in four separate ways. But of course, it starts with the spiritual, because having that faith and having that belief in being healed, having that belief that God is protecting you and guiding you, that's what has helped me along and has helped him along. So it's just a huge part of his life.
That's good. I think when we probably discuss another time, I feel as if, and this is not the point of the, you know, it's just a little side note or a little sidetrack, that I feel as if that in the world of, organized religions or denominations within those religions, I don't think they really talk about these aspects about, you know, um, you know, the heavens with the light, um, you know, pouring downwards towards us. And that's how, to an extent, we get some level of energetic healing. I don't feel like that's done near enough, or that's said near enough. And I also have my other reservations about it. Maybe that's another discussion for another day. But yeah, I we will we are obviously nearing towards the end, but I feel as if that I have to bring this up because I think you told me not so long ago that it was a big breakthrough for Daniel, especially in terms of his symptoms, behavior, and even on his hair analysis. Just please expand on that for us and how it's taken, 11 years, and we've seen certain changes that, we would we as we're both practitioners, we know that those are really good signs. So that's
Yeah, well, on his for many years he had low levels of zinc, and zinc is a trace mineral in the body, but it's just necessary for protein synthesis. It's necessary in the cell for a lot of different a lot of different synthesis for enzymes, proteins, energy. Everything is very, very essential. Children that have low zinc, people that have low zinc, their development is slowed. Low zinc will, in an adult, the regeneration of the cells within the organs, even wound healing and stuff like that, and the mental stability is affected by low zinc. So people that have low zinc, they're more susceptible to having psychosis and psychotic problems, schizophrenia, different emotional issues and mental problems. So his level of zinc was low, and that's an indication of high toxic metals, because these toxins and these toxic chemicals, um, they will lower the essential minerals that you need. So it's really diabolical. But that raised over time, especially recently in the past couple of years. So that indicates that there's a higher level of protein synthesis, And protein synthesis will help you to regenerate, to grow physically, to grow, and all your hormones and things are working properly. Especially in girls, when they hit a certain age, their hormones need to be balanced in order for them to develop correctly, and in order for them to have emotional and mental stability. So as that increased, you can just see, you can feel, and you can see the balance and the more stability that he had in his emotions, and also just his physical development. You can that's easy to see physically with your eyes. And then also another big change was his sodium potassium ratio was low his whole life up until just this year. Finally got it to flip. It was always below 2.5. His first one was 0.49, which is very low, but it was always below 2.5. And just recently it flipped, so now it's over 2.5, which it's a when you get into the mineral balancing patterns and interpretations, you'll learn the meanings of certain patterns. But it's something called a joy pattern or a development pattern. It's just a really, really good sign that the energy production is now it's optimizing to where the body, if it can produce the energy that it needs, then the body will start to send signals and send messages to everywhere it needs to do what it needs to do to be as healthy as possible. So when we're just increasing the energy production of the body, or we're increasing the body's ability to produce energy through that sodium potassium ratio, now it will naturally just do what it needs to do to continue that healing process, continue the growth, and continue the development, and the development of the mind in particular, because there's so many things that can only be done in this world from a person that has a sound mind. A sound mind meaning one that is logical, reason, wisdom, understanding, compassion, love, all of the basically the fruits of the spirit. It becomes much more easy to embody those things when the person has optimal level of energy. Just bringing it back to spirituality for a second, when a
Hmm.
person is in um, church, and a person is really has faith and they're Christian and everything, and but their level of energy is very, very low, so they may have a low sodium potassium ratio. It's very difficult to connect, and it's very difficult to fulfill what God has given you to fulfill when your body won't let you. And your body won't let you, possibly because you have so much potential, and there's outside negative forces that are trying to penetrate your aura field and mess with your mind and cause you to be unstable. So the mental stability that comes from this, first the physical, when a person has sickle cell anemia, and they just go months and months and months or years without having any pain or without having any issues, that in and of itself makes them better mentally, makes them more mentally stable. But when you're correcting all of the mineral ratios, when you're correcting that oxidation rate, when you're correcting the vitality ratio, it really takes everything to another level. And this is something that we haven't seen before, because this science is still relatively unknown. After all of these decades, we really um, need to get this technology out and this science out, and it's something that everybody can do. It's not expensive at all. Um, Anybody can budget these things. All it takes is dedication and a little bit of discipline. Take supplements, 2-3 times a day, and eat healthy. Do some detox procedures. That's all it takes. And for me, it started with faith, because I really believed. I prayed to God, and I believed that I would be shown what I need to do to help people with sickle cell and just people in general, because this is for everybody that has any type of ailment and for healthy people. Because even if you're healthy, you want to be as healthy and as strong as you can be. And you can always get healthier because we live in a world that's filled with toxins. We live in a world where the soil that our food is grown in is minerally depleted. And a lot of the minerals that are in the soil are in oxide form. And people's bodies are not strong enough to properly assimilate the minerals. So sometimes, even if a mineral is taken, if a person's body is so weak, then it'll transmute that into an oxide form to where it turns into a detriment in the body, and they're not getting out of it what they need to.
Hmm.
So that is what we're looking to do to get the information out to people, so that people can begin to heal.
Yep. Like you couldn't have said that any better. So I recall that the zinc level went up, the NAK ratio went up. That's typically I don't go too much into the science, but they typically go in relatively healthy stress responses. They typically go up and down together. Maybe that's another discussion for another day. Now, and color puncture, because you said you've started in, utilizing color puncture, and you're starting to starting to get a little bit of results. Color puncture is not necessarily known in our mineral balancing community to be a go-to, and I have in previous, at least in DMs, have at least said to you, Dante, that there's nothing wrong with at least stretching yourself out of to different ventures or different like areas where you could receive some sort of progress or healing. Simply because once you're more grounded into the knowledge and the basis that comprises of mineral balancing, you can easily apply it to almost everything else. You could be able to swiftly tell whether something's going to be effective or whether something's not going to be effective. So now, color puncture. So just give us a little overview of what color puncture is, and then we can maybe then ask you a few follow-up questions.
Well, when I was just speaking to you about light, that's where I learned it from. The study of color puncture is basically you're applying light to in specific instruments that have light crystals, and you're applying it to certain points in the body. So it's got the word puncture in it, so we know it's kind of related to acupuncture to an extent. Okay, so we know that we have meridians that flow through our body that carry etheric energy, or it carries invisible energy, right? So that's kind of the reason why um, teachings like this are not really accepted in Western medicine. Even though there are some insurances that will provide money for acupuncture, so that's come a long way. Um, but color puncture is you're hitting certain points that affect certain energy meridians in your on your skin with light, and what it does is every different color has a frequency, and it has a different frequency of healing. So it does something different. You have your cool colors, you have your hot colors, and there are different points that are hit, and there are different patterns that you use for your endocrine system. Um, if you're in a state of a toxic state, or if you're in a degenerative state, and it affects the main thing it's designed to do is remove blockages of energy. So when, let's say, you're increasing your sodium potassium ratio, so now you've got increased energy. Okay, so you want to make sure that you don't have any blockages of energy. You want to make sure that the pathway to your pancreas is open. There's no energy blockage. So that's where color puncture comes in. It opens relay systems inside of your brain. There are different treatments that help connect the brain in your head to the brain in your gut and your belly, which would helps you to be able to have guidance and understand your intuition and to make the right decisions in life. Because some people say, "Hey, well, I had a gut feeling about this, and something just told me to do this," and it's usually always right. But sometimes we have a disconnection. So the brain in our mind, in our head, is kind of disconnected from the brain in our belly. So that intuition is not really there. So we may make the wrong decisions in life. So those blockages like that are removed, and the energy is able to flow a lot better. And there's different treatments for a lot of different things. So doing that has really helped him as well.
Hmm.
And, so it's something that I'm learning, and something that I want to also bring to the healing community, to the mineral balancing community. That along with what I'm prayerfully going to be getting into next year, which is soil science and regenerating the soil, urban farming. And there's a lot of people that do urban farming, but utilizing some of the methods of the regeneration of soil. Dr. Wilson has an article on his website, and that's going to be the basis of what I'm doing to remineralize the soil. Just doing soil tests. They have soil test kits that you can do that just like a hair analysis, and it gives you the mineral content and the ratios of the soil. And then from there, you add whatever needs to be added, and you give it time, and then you retest after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Because I want to, I want more people just in their backyard to start growing some greens, some green beans, some collard greens, some carrots, cabbage, different things like that, and just see if you notice a difference. See if it's more, it strengthens your body more. See if there's a better taste to it, and see if we can remineralize the soil in our own urban gardens, and then go from there and just grow and grow.
Yeah. Said one day, hopefully, I'll join you at least for a period of time. That remains to be seen. Hopefully, I'll be able to do so in terms
Hmm.
of the mineral balancing for the soil. Now, something that from our interactions, and probably want to share this. Am I correct in saying that you could use color puncture to sort of like find out certain food sensitivities? Did Daniel have any food sensitivities, or maybe the word isn't the sensitivities, but just like, yeah, you could tell that he may not be that, you know, receptive to a certain food or anything along those lines.
Yeah, color puncture in and of itself, no. I I used I went to a color puncture practitioner, Kay Vogel. She's actually here in Houston as well. Um, she has a machine or some type of software system that's connected to this machine that actually measures the it's crazy. It measures the electromagnetic energy that's coming out of your fingers, and
Mm-hmm.
it uses that data. It processes it in a software system, and then from there it'll generate all the type of information. So that's when I found out. I had that done for Daniel, and that's when I found out that he's not good with eggs. So he doesn't really eat egg. I don't cook eggs anymore, and it's been um, helpful. It's been helpful.
Yeah.
So
What do you say the practitioner's name is? I might probably hit her up maybe at some point, hopefully, and
yeah,
maybe get her meet and interact. So there'll be
absolutely. She's amazing. Kay Vogel, Kay, and her
Vogel.
last name is Vogel, Vogel.
Yes. So Dr. K Vogel, hope she gets to watch this sometime. Big up shout out to her. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So I guess the final question here, and I think I'll probably ask everyone whenever I do something like this is what do you think the biggest area of opportunity is so that not just people with sickle cell or people with other seemingly genetic conditions can do, and what we as a humanity at large would need to start to receive a different perspective in regards to like their health, their healing, um, and everything in between. So this will be my final question.
I would say take on the mentality of you can do it yourself. It can be done. You do not have to have a condition your entire life. God has given, He's put programs in our body that if we do the right things and we give the body the right atmosphere within, that the body will heal itself. That has to be understood. We have to get out of the mindset of, well, I have a genetic problem, or I have a genetic disease, so I'm going to have to take this drug for the rest of my life, or I have to sit and wait for them to come up with a miracle cure, or I have to sit and wait and hope that I can get on a clinical trial. No, our DNA, our genetics, only thing we need to do, and we can do it, is give our bodies the right atmosphere for our genetics to maximize themselves and to optimize themselves. And that can be done. People have to believe that. They got to believe it because
Yeah,
we've seen it. I've seen it. And then
yeah,
once you begin to see, and here's just another thing: once people begin to see improvement, a lot of times people quit, because I've noticed. And one of the reasons is because of fear. A lot of people don't know what it feels like to be happy, to be healthy, to be strong, and it scares them. So when they see a glimpse of, wow, I'm getting better, this is happening, and they allow themselves to be pulled back through fear and fear of the unknown. So a lot of people shy away from things like this because they have a fear of it. They have a they have a fear of the responsibility. They're not confident that they would be able to have the discipline to do it. And then some that do it, once they see things start to improve, just because they've been in a pattern so long of illness or a negativity, they feel more comfortable going back the way they were. So it's just a whole mindset and a shift on every area, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. You have to shift every compartment of your being into um, healing and moving forward, and knowing that you deserve to live an abundant life.
guys, it's all you could say. It's about mindset. I don't necessarily want to go into all of that, but it is very important that, as Dante said, that it is key to have that belief that there is something that can go in a positive direction, and that's very important if you want to heal at all, if you want to have any measure of decent health in a very toxic times. All right, Dante, as in the pleasure to speak with you, I cannot even describe it because this has been real juicy, real juicy. And I like that you brought the spiritual component to it. I was kind of prepping for it as well because, you know, I like to have those perspectives. I like to also have those who are more, sciencey to it, add a bit of science to it. And I just
Mhm.
like every band to sort of like, educate myself more, improve the sort of wordplay that I use. So Dante, man, I love this call it live stream podcast, call it what you want. People watch this a few days down the line, a few months down the line, we'll make this known so that, at least it opens up what can be and what it takes to get to, at least a healthier, um, humanity, and we can stop saying genetic conditions for the and put that to bed. Hopefully, but yeah, I really appreciate it today. The glitch on my computer and everything. Well, just one an extra data points to learn. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and I wish you the very best as you continue to help yourself and help your son and everyone else in between. So thanks,
Thank
Dante. Love it.
you. All right. Have a good one.
All right, let me just do this first.
Okay.